Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, am I really living the life I was meant to? Welcome to Female Fluence, where we stop waiting for permission and start remembering our power. I am Pearl Mashour, a mom, educator, and a women's empowerment coach. And this is a space for honest conversations about growth, purpose, and becoming who you truly are. Here, we wake up to ourselves. We release the guilt, reclaim our confidence, and rise with grace, truth, and a little bit of fire. If something in you is whispering, there's more, take the self-reflection quiz at femalefluence.com and see where you are in your journey. Because you're not here to play small, you're here to rise fully. Burnout doesn't just happen. It's what shows up when we've been caring too much for too long, when we've been holding everyone else up while quietly abandoning ourselves. We get busy with work, with caregiving, with being the strong one, and we forget to pause, to breathe, to come back to our own body. And eventually, guess what? The exhaustion becomes louder than our coping. And my guest today was actually hospitalized, which became her wake-up call, forcing her to face the deeper emotional hunger that was driving her pain. She has walked a path that many would never imagine. From refugee to tech founder, through a hidden battle with food and alcohol that nearly broke her, to rebuilding her body, her identity, and her life. And now she's devoted to helping women in peri and post-menopause to reclaim their vitality, their confidence, and joy. This conversation is about reinvention, the kind that begins within, the kind that whispers, it's not too late, your story's not finished, you are allowed to begin again. Terry Tateossian is a health and fitness expert, podcast host, and the founder of THOR, the House of Rose. I love that. A wellness community for women over 40. Her story begins in Eastern Europe under a communist regime. At just 11 years old, she spent 2 years in a refugee camp and eventually made it to the US to start a life. She went on to build a thriving career in tech and media, raising 2 children. On the outside, it looked like she had it all. But behind the scenes, she was silently battling burnout, which was showing itself with food addiction and alcohol dependency. Her health was spiraling, her energy was depleted, and her sense of self nearly lost. But guess what? She didn't give up. After failing with numerous diets and experiencing serious health scares, she realized that her problem wasn't physical, but emotional. By addressing her emotional eating and adopting a holistic approach involving strength training, nutrition, and mindset, she changed everything. Terry, welcome to Female Fluence. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Pearl, so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit about, I gave a little background of your journey. What would you say was your main turning point, the moment you realized that you can no longer sustain this type of lifestyle and choose to embrace a new direction?
You mentioned it already. Actually, I got hospitalized twice, and it took twice to wake me up in
Twice.
a sense. Yes.
So why did you get hospitalized? Were you just, I mean, what happened? If you can share that with us.
Right. Well, right before that, the years prior to that, the first incident, I was working really hard. So 15, 16-hour days. If anybody out there owns a business, you know what I mean. You wear a lot of hats, you do a lot of things, you travel a lot. There's a lot of pressure. And my first child, my daughter, I had at 30. My second child, my son, I had at 35. So right around 37, 38, I was going on all cylinders. Okay. There was absolutely zero time for anything. I mean, I was lucky to get my teeth brushed, my hair brushed, take a shower, get dressed, and boom, it just starts until the moment I close my eyes at night. And so I was just running that way for years. Now, when I think back to it, I think that was a trauma response in a sense, right? Work really hard and, earn your keep and all these things. But I did. I found myself at 37, 210 pounds. I'm 5'3", and yeah, very obese. And so one night I remember I was opening up the refrigerator. I was in my kitchen going for my nightly pint of ice cream of whatever, and I just started having chest pains just out of nowhere. I seemingly felt okay, but I started having chest pains, really sharp pains in the area of the heart. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack. I run to ER. I spent the night there. They let me go the next day and they said, they ran all the tests, they did all the things. And they said, here's a Xanax, go home. You need to lose some weight. Basically, that was the diagnosis. And so I felt really embarrassed because when I walked into ER, it was packed with a lot of people and they took me so seriously because, chest pains, they're going to take it seriously. And it was a false alarm, right? And so I was, first of all, mad,
Right.
ashamed, and just embarrassed. And I was like, my gosh, what is this nonsense? I don't have time for this. And I just ignored it, right? So I just kept going the same way I was going because it wasn't a heart attack. I didn't have a stroke. I was fine. And then a couple of months later, it happened again. And this time it was again really severe, almost to the point where I felt like I was going to faint. And right back to ER. It's like this time they missed something. They got it wrong last time. I am definitely having a heart attack this time. Again, it was the same thing. I was having a panic attack. And once again, they said, go to a cardiologist just to make sure everything's good. But yeah, you're just having a panic attack. Here's the Xanax, go home. And so now I had to really combat the idea that, this wasn't a one-time fluke.
Hmm.
It happened again, right? And so being type A and very efficient, hardworking, efficient type A, we don't have time to go to ER every couple of months because we're so busy, right? We're so important and we're so busy. And so I was like, okay, I gotta do something about this. So I did go to a cardiologist. I did have prediabetes. I was very obese. I did have some ovarian cysts going on. I think 19 at the time. I
Wow.
was 80 pounds overweight. Oh, yeah, I had all kinds of things going on. And then I decided to go to a holistic doctor, and that was a very eye-opening. Okay. So if anyone's ever gone to an integrative holistic doctor, you know what I'm talking about. They take a really long time to talk to you and find out about your history. The doctor even asked me about my mother's history and my grandmother's history. So she went into epigenetics, she went
Mm.
into family history, family trauma. My entire life, I went through my mother's entire life and my grandmother's entire life. And that blew me away. After the 2-hour conversation with the physician, her response to everything I said was, wow, you've been through a lot. So no wonder these things are happening right now. And that really connected the dots for me that, maybe I was living life with blinders on and
Hmm.
not really addressing root cause because no matter how much I try to get in shape or lose weight or eat healthy, and I'm putting all of these in air quotes, I never managed to sustain it. I never managed to maintain it. I would succeed for a little while and then fall off the wagon. And all of this eventually led me to understand that I had an eating disorder, probably my whole life, called emotional eating,
Hmm.
which I didn't even know was a thing. So when I first heard that, you could possibly have an eating disorder, it's called emotional eating, and it's a way that people cope with their internal state or their nervous system regulation by binging. And I was like, that is ridiculous. Like, what? Like, I've never heard of such a thing. All I knew was anorexia or bulimia, but there's a wide spectrum of behavioral type of eating disorders that we don't really hear much about. But yeah, so that's kind of the gist of the story.
Well, I'm really glad that you decided to finally listen to the messages that your body was giving you before it was too late, because a lot of us do that, right? It just seems like we wait and we wait. And realistically, we all are learning right now that the body does keep score. So we need to heal those emotions. So now you understood that there was a cause. Did you understand the source of that endless hunger, where it was rooted, and what emotion it was giving?
Overwhelm, very, very overwhelming lifestyle,
Hmm.
overstimulation, right? A lot of things happening all at the same time, a lot of
I mean, just your
expectations.
childhood by itself, right? That can have a huge impact. Like, being a refugee, just trying to leave. And I mean, it's hard. It's a hard transition to go through, because I had to I was younger, but I had to leave Iran right when the revolution happened. So that whole thing of like starting fresh and trying to gain the acceptance of people around you who don't understand, and you don't speak the same language, and you don't look like everyone else. And as a little kid, it's really overwhelming, and it's very stressful because you already feel insecure. And then you add all these new factors that you're different, your family's different, and you don't really belong here. And now you're not over there. So where in the world do you belong?
You nailed it. You nailed it. But you know what's interesting? When I was a child, I was underweight. So I grew up, not undernourished, but I wasn't obese. I wasn't overweight. But what you described, yeah, absolutely. I mean, not speaking English when I got here at 13, you know, all of my friends were also immigrants and having to adapt really quickly. But as a child, we do these things automatically, right? We don't really think about them in the enormity of in the sense of what how they
Yeah.
actually are. So we're very adaptable as children. But the more I think about it, the more I realize, over time, when these things are not addressed or discussed, or in immigrant families, we don't talk about these things. We don't talk about our
That was
feelings.
exactly what I was going to say. I'm like, that's the other problem, right? Because it's like, you got to just, pave through it, don't discuss it. That's the other issue.
Oh, 100%. And, I know how Persian culture is, and it's very similar to Slavic and Armenian culture. And so I'm Armenian. And so, yeah, I mean, you know, discussing our feelings, what are feelings?
Yeah. That's so true.
Apologizing for things. It's more like, I'm sorry you have feelings, it's not, I'm sorry
Yeah.
for what I did. It's, I'm sorry
Right.
you're too sensitive. Going to the gym was a waste of time. Self-care, what the heck is that? Just go back to school. Okay. Go back to your studies, go back to work. Your purpose is to earn a living. Your purpose is to make
Right.
money. You need to earn your keep essentially. And so, that was drilled into me. And then eventually it kind of blindsided me when I was
Hmm.
least expecting it. And, there's some people that have a tendency to use in terms of substance, and I have that in my genetic pool as well. And so the addictive behavior, right?
Right.
Most type A's, most workaholics, alcoholics, all the olics, right, have an addictive type of personality. And so, yeah, that was the silent coping mechanism that
Hmm.
I adopted instead of addressing my feelings, because we're not allowed to have those.
Yes. And I think part of it too, being an immigrant is just because, I mean, at least personally for me, it's like, you feel like this guilt that your family sacrificed and they came here and they used to have some sort of a status where where they're from, and now they're kind of starting from scratch. So you feel this tremendous pressure that you need to make sure you perform well and you do well. You need to make them proud. You need to impress them because they changed their entire life so that you could have a successful one, right? So it's a lot of that. I mean, I feel like that's where a lot of my perfectionism came through too, and that type A that you're talking about that I can absolutely relate to. And I've worked a lot on, but it's that feeling that, okay, well, I need to do this because this is what they did. And as a result, I'm here. So I'm grateful and I need to make sure that I'm achieving, at a high level.
100%. Well, I mean, it's drilled into you,
Yep.
right?
From day
And
one, from day
yeah,
one. Yes.
yes,
Yes. Very
very
true.
high expectation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How essential do you think is mindset in this process when we realize that, okay, there's some damage, we need to heal, we need to work on ourselves, we're figuring out the root. How essential is mindset in this process?
It's everything, right? And literally mindset applies to any area in your life. It doesn't matter what it is. How you perceive yourself internally, your internal dialogue, how you feel about yourself, how well you regulate your emotional state on minute to minute basis. It's really a skill and you can learn that over time, but it's hard to change when internally you hate yourself. It's hard to change when you believe you're broken, you believe you're lazy, you believe you're failing. There's no plan that's going to work for you long term. So the first place is most definitely to really become aware of those insidious, quiet, seemingly innocent little thoughts that
Mhm.
are, running on autopilot in
Yep.
your brain. And sometimes they can even seem like positive things, right? Oh, I got to do this. I have to achieve,
It's
achieve,
pressure.
achieve.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Hmm. So a lot of times they camouflage themselves as good thoughts.
Yeah.
But when you start kind of trailing back, where did they come from? How did they get formed? What's the underlying concept behind it, right? Where is it? What is the intention behind it? Or where is it? What is driving that thought? You start to really be shocked. Sometimes I was shocked when I realized all that.
It's very true. Now, do you think the reason that where some people, we see this happen often, people lose weight initially and then they keep gaining it back and they go from one diet to another diet and then they think they've found a solution. And is the weight returning often because they haven't found the root cause of the problem? Is that usually you think, I mean, is that usually the cause is the emotional or the spiritual cause underneath the problem where we all do it. We try to eat or drink to help ourselves calm down and make ourselves feel better. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think the majority of the time, and everybody's really different. So I'm just going to preface it that it's very bio-individual and there's a lot of
Of
different,
course.
a lot of nuance here. But for many people, or women specifically, they're not necessarily hungry for food. They're hungry for connection, rest, safety, validation, or relief, right? And so at the end of the day, when you have been running on all cylinders, taking care of your family,
Hmm.
pleasing your parents, and all these things, you want a relief. And food is not as stigmatized in society as alcohol is. And a lot of us also combine alcohol with food. And that's kind of like almost like a reward. It's a relief. It's a way to relax. It's a way to numb down whatever feelings of, it could be anything, overstimulation, overwhelm, anything really. Happiness. It could be
Hmm.
happiness, right? That we are not looking to project out, right? And so what I realized is that when you are successful, let's say, I'm going to give you myself as an example. I would lose 40 pounds all the time and I would gain it back. Why? Because First of all, diet culture is not sustainable. So all the things out there, all the 40,000 books on Amazon that are at this point, probably there's even more than that,
Yeah.
all the diet advice, all the restrict this, restrict that, that's not a sustainable way to live. So we've been conditioned to believe that dieting is how we lose weight, when in essence, it's fueling our body properly and
Hmm.
consistently, regularly is how we maintain and lose body fat. But essentially, we come off of the diet and then we don't know much about reverse dieting. That's not a topic that's discussed out there. And we go right back to how we were living our lifestyle before we started the diet, because the new identity, in a sense, that we tried to develop during the
Hmm.
dieting phase has not integrated with the person that we are, hasn't integrated into with the ego and the rest of our personality. Why? Because it's not really sustainable. Another reason is it takes a long time to change. Okay, it takes a
Right.
long time, years, if not decades, to reprogram automatic habits and automatic behaviors. So giving yourself 3 months to get into that summer dress
Hmm.
is not enough time, especially when you're 80 pounds overweight. You didn't gain that weight in 3 months, you're not losing it in 3 months, right?
Right, right.
And so it just hasn't reconciled, right? And so we go back on this yo-yo dieting expedition, and then it just reinforces that we are going to fail, right? So the expectation when you go on a diet is that
Yeah.
eventually you're going to fail and that we're not good enough, right? So one of the repetitive thoughts that I had after doing 30 different diets is, what is wrong with me that I just cannot
Hmm.
seem to do this? But meanwhile, it works for everybody else, right?
Right.
So
So there's
all
those voices, right, that are coming and talking to you.
right, right.
No, it's
Yeah.
very true. And I think also, I think that just the word diet in general has, like, for me, if I'm trying to be healthy and I say, okay, that's it. Like this week, I'm going to be on a diet and I'm going to limit this, and I'm going to do this. Immediately, I feel like I'm hungry more. Like I'm thinking about it more. It's now it's becoming a thing that I have. I'm like, wait, I can't have any of this. Like the moment you're like really limiting versus normally, I'm sustaining a very healthy, I guess not diet, but like a food plan, eating plan, and it works. But it's like I think it's mentally really like that. The moment you start like saying, okay, I am not gonna eat bread anymore, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh gosh, I'm really craving bread. I want bread. So I just feel like everything is with balance. And when you don't set such harsh, drastic limitations, then it's like, yeah, 2 weeks, I'm not going to have sugar. I'm not going to have bread. I'm not going to. And then, like, 2 weeks after, you're, doing the opposite. You're binging. You're just like, well, I haven't had bread for 2 weeks. So I'm starving. My body is craving it. So that's why it's just like that word diet, I feel like has just like a bad stigmatism to it, because it just puts a stress on you where you immediately feel like you're limiting yourself, and then your mind plays tricks on you where you feel like you want things that you normally wouldn't even want, but it's like, wait, I'm limiting myself, so I want to actually now have it. I want to sneak a piece of chocolate. You know what I'm saying? That's just my personal way of thinking about it. So I try not to even use that word anymore, and just be like, I'm feel like you were saying, I need to fuel my body. These are the things that are good for me. These are the things that I need to give my body. And then, on this day, it's a Friday night, I'm going to give myself a treat, and it's okay. Just having those type of thoughts and conversations with yourself, it frees you. I think it feels so much better than all these limitations and diets constantly. And that's, again, like you're saying, everyone's different, every body type is different, everyone has different challenges, but that's what has kind of worked out for me.
Absolutely. And that type of mindset is doesn't really align with the actual science of losing weight because there's no one particular food that we can cut out that's
Yeah.
going to miraculously help us lose weight. It really is the total number of calories per
Yes.
day consumed versus total number of calories expended throughout the day. And so if you really think about it, a sustainable weight loss plan is where you're in a small caloric deficit, most likely about 500 calories per day, which adds up to 3,500 calories per week, which is the equivalent of 1 pound, right? And you don't really want to lose more than 1 pound per week because
Hmm.
that's also not sustainable,
Right.
especially
Right.
in midlife, right? So it starts messing with your hormones,
Yes.
you start losing muscle mass, bone density, etc., right? And so these messages out there in the media, oh, so and so lost 30 pounds in 30 days.
Yes. Yes.
What?
And people fall for it. And I have to say, just to add on, like with this mindset I have not, this is not the mindset always had. Just I want to make that clear. Like I have three kids. With my first child, I gained 80 pounds. It was just like my system was shocked. I couldn't believe it. And it was really challenging, having a toddler, then getting pregnant and trying to lose it again. But it's just through my years of experiencing with my body and knowing what my body is capable and what my body needs that I've learned now at the age of 48 to have this type of mindset, which is really my body has really benefited from it versus before where I wanted to lose that weight, I was counting calories like crazy. Every time I put something in my mouth, the guilt, comes after you. So it's a work in progress. It's something that you have to work on to get to this point, and it's not easy. It's a challenge for sure.
Absolutely. And then looking at food as that, this really blew my mind. So when I started learning macros and, how much protein, how many carbs, and how much fat I was consuming per day and eating that consistently day in and day out, the question became not, should I eat this, but am I eating enough? Right. So when I started counting macros, I had to hit certain numbers every
Hmm.
single day in order, first of all, to crowd out sugar. Right. So when you eat enough protein, when you eat enough vegetables, fruits, and the right numbers, amount of starch, along with the right amount of fat, that's a lot of food. Okay. Because it's high volume food. You get full much easier
Easier.
and you don't have cravings. So, in order to cut out sugar or alcohol, or any of these other kinds of sugary foods that are small in volume, high in calories, you want to eat enough real whole food. And
Hmm.
that is a lot of food. So, when my mindset changed to, am I eating enough food or should I be eating this? It really blew my mind. Like I was in the very beginning when I first started counting macros, I was losing 8 pounds a month and I was stuffed. Like I was eating five huge meals per day
Yes.
and I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the heck? Why didn't somebody tell me about this?
You're like, this works out. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's why a lot of people like, I would even have my own, my like daughter, like she'd be like, oh, she's like living on coffee. You know how these young kids do. And it's like, I'm not eating anything. And how come? And I'm just like, you don't understand. Like you're slowing down your metabolism by starving yourself all day and thinking, oh, just my coffee, which is like filled with like, especially these coffee drinks that they really advertise to the young generation. It's like full of sugar and it's like nothing good for you that is going to help boost your energy for the day. And that's the problem right there. Like what you're saying, you can eat. It's not about starving yourself. You can eat good things and just think about like what, and especially with us in that perimenopause, postmenopause, during menopause. And it's like that protein intake. Now, when I'm trying to think about, oh, I'm really like, okay, I need to add a little bit of this because I need more protein today. So it's like constantly doing the math of the protein that we need on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, protein, it's like if anyone is out there listening that hasn't heard that you need to eat protein, you're living under a rock, right? Or in the Stone
Yes.
Ages, or I don't know, like 1750.
Right, exactly.
Right. And so it's like it's everywhere now, right? You have to eat protein, 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 protein nonstop. But what I have found with by working with a lot of women is that the average protein intake for most women in their 40s is between 70 to 90 grams per day, which is barely enough relief to sustain life
It's a
and just
lot.
regular.
It's like that's like your full-time job. It's just to eat
Well, that's
protein.
little actually. So 70 grams of protein per day is very low.
Yeah.
Yeah. The recommended dose is actually not on par of what is being recommended in the food pyramid. The recommended amount of protein per day for, let's say, a 140-pound woman that is not looking to gain or lose weight, so she just wants to maintain her body
Okay.
composition, is 140 grams of protein.
Okay, that's what I was that I heard about. Okay, yeah, that's a lot, right? That's increasingly a lot.
That is actually very easy to get. So I can tell you right now. So first meal, yogurt with a little sprinkle of protein powder.
Okay,
Second meal, egg whites with some vegetables and whatever else you're going to have with that. Third meal, a salad with 100 grams of chicken. That's right there. You're going to hit
okay,
that. And fourth meal would be a little snack, maybe a protein brownie or something like that, or maybe overnight oats with a sprinkle of protein powder and whatever you're going to have for dinner. So they're very small meals sprinkled out throughout the day, right? So every 3 hours. And that helps women in midlife
hmm
during perimenopause, menopause to regulate insulin, regulate blood sugar, keep the energy moving, right? Not to have a binging episode later on in the day because she didn't get enough food throughout the day. And just to keep all of these things moving properly, keep your hair from falling out, nails, everything.
Okay. So you said for an average woman in this stage, you said 140.
So it's 1 gram of protein per body pound.
Okay, okay, 1 gram per body pound. Okay,
hmm
okay.
And if you're resistance training, so if you're lifting weights and you're
So that
doing,
would be more.
you would get more. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Very nice. So now that you've been through all of this, how do you teach others to become aware of those triggers behind emotional eating and like what are the first steps they should take to like recognize that oh this is happening, how do I break this pattern?
hmm Yeah. So the first step would be to become aware, right? So when you set out on a goal, and usually with emotional eaters, the goal would be to lose weight, right? Body fat. I'm going to be specific, not lose weight. We want to lose body fat. When you set out to achieve a certain goal, if you are an emotional eater, eventually something's going to trigger you, right? So there's going to be an event that takes place that, you take an emotional hit and the emotional eating episode will come up. And once that happens, when I work with women, I generally try to stay away from the feelings of guilt and shame and negative self-talk and
Mhm.
etc. But just collect evidence, right? So collect the evidence when this episode took place. What happened 3 days before that happened, right? So you were doing great, everything was fine for let's say 3 months into this new journey. And then all of a sudden, boom, right? Face fall. What happened, right? So there's going to be an event that took place a week ago, 3 days ago, the day of, maybe, doesn't matter. Journal it, write it down. Notice what types of feelings came up when that happened, right? And what would you say
Mhm.
you needed in that moment when you reached for whatever you binge on? Everybody has their own preference, right? And notice the urgency of it. Because when you have a binge, it's not a slow kind of hunger that builds throughout the day. You could have just had dinner two
Mhm.
minutes ago, and then the binging episode comes on and it's extremely urgent, right? And it's not like one or two potato chips. It's the whole bag.
Right.
It's not like a scoop of ice cream. It's the entire container, right? So it's not necessarily physical hunger is
Mhm.
what I'm trying to get at, right? So differentiating between physical hunger and emotional hunger. And when it's emotional hunger, what were you hungry for? Were you hungry for, a connection? Were you hungry for a hug or somebody to talk to? What were you feeling that you needed in that moment? And just document it. And then the next day, instead of restricting and going in the opposite direction, right? Where now you're going to starve yourself because you're in punishment or you're in timeout because you failed so miserably
Yeah,
yesterday, right?
of course.
You just go back to the way that you were supposed to be eating in the first place. And this is where macros and knowing what each food is made out of really helped me because I knew I had to hit these numbers, right? And it was a lot of food. So the next day I would just go back to my normal routine without making any changes, without making any drastic changes because of the binge, right? And then let's say a few months go by, a few weeks go by, you have another binge. This time again, you write it down, you notice, you journal what happened, et cetera, et cetera. And each time it happens, you start to learn more about that boogeyman that lives somewhere
Yeah.
deep inside your psyche and why they're running your life. And over time, you start to develop different coping skills for that, right? You start to anticipate that it's going to happen. So, what did I do to anticipate? I knew I would be a fool to think that I wasn't going to fall on my face. I knew it was going to happen because that's just the way it was. And so I decided that I would get ahead of it and I would prepare. Let's say ice cream was my choice of food that I would binge. I would prepare protein ice cream, Ninja
There
Creamies,
you
for
go.
example.
Right.
And I would have that ready in the refrigerator so that when that came up, I had my replacement, I had my substitution. If I wanted to binge on Nutella, for example, I would make a mousse, protein mousse that I could have, in a larger quantity, but that wasn't going to bust my calories or bust my macros. And I would get ahead of the boogeyman, right? I would get
Yes.
ahead of it and outsmart myself essentially. And over time, eventually, I kind of lost my taste for Haagen-Dazs or Ben and Jerry's or, Lay's potato chips or whatever it was because I had something else.
I love that. I think, first of all, being aware and then the journaling and then having compassion for yourself. So you had a moment where you binged, and the next day, let's get back into it instead of feeling guilty and just saying, okay, that's it. Like, I give up. I'm not good enough. I can't handle this. And going back into your old routine. And then these replacements. I mean, right now, especially with like Instagram, I feel like there's so many replacements. Every time I go and I'm like, oh, I'm craving like chocolate chip cookies. It's like, oh, here we have protein cookies and it's made only with almond flour and no sugar and cottage cheese. And it's like, okay, so that's if you prepare for those cravings, so then you have no excuse. It's like, I'm craving for this, but I have this. So I'm not kind of depleting my body. I'm not depriving it. I'm going to enjoy something without feeling guilty afterwards. So that's a great plan. What would you say for the people who always say, because it's again, it takes time, right? You have to make an effort. You need to give it priority that this is your health, this is your self-being, which is important. And many of us go through life saying, I don't have time. I really don't have time to plan ahead or prep my meals or follow through with a nutritionist coach or journal my food. Is do you think, I mean, do you think you would say that how important is our time? And do we spend more time on putting our energy on scrolling and distractions and, doing all these other things instead of pushing it towards nourishing ourselves, which I think a lot of us do, right? We can be guilty of that because it's just making that time a priority towards our body.
Exactly. So it's not that we don't have time. I mean, I can't say that either because when I had two toddlers and a
Yeah.
full-time business, I didn't have time,
Time, right?
right? So I had to either get through that period of time and then come back to myself because there are times in our lives when we truly are.
There's a tough seasons that we all go through. There can be challenging things happening in life, or you have young toddlers and you're alone and trying to manage it all. So it is true. But I guess I would say it just takes a lot of prepping, right? You really have to kind of schedule it in your time. Like I try on Sundays, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to start like making some overnight, like the chocolate chia pudding or whatever, oats and things like that, like food prepping, and just leave like an hour or two on that day so that Monday comes along when life is really, really busy and I don't have time. I have those replacements for those things.
Absolutely. And the other thing I do notice is many times it's not necessarily that we don't have time, it's that we are dysregulated, right? So, and we're overwhelmed and we have too many things on our schedule, and maybe we're putting priorities on things that are not going to give us as much return on our investment,
Mhm.
because somewhere in our minds we have decided that getting our nails and hair done is more important than losing, body fat. Because somewhere in the back of our minds, we're thinking we can't do it anyway. So what's the point, right? It's
So true.
impossible, right? So why dedicate time to that when I'm going to fail anyway, right?
Right.
But if you have a good strategy and you have a good plan, you shouldn't fail. You should be able to do that. And if that means you give up on your hair and your nails, and I tell my clients this all the time, going and getting my nails done, manicure, pedicure is like 3 hours a week, right? And so maybe in the next 6 months, if my priority is to drop a few pounds, maybe I'm going to put that on hold and use that time to prep my food for the week. Or maybe I'm not going to have as many lunch dates with my friends because I'm going to have to put that on hold for a little bit and reprioritize. So just looking at your schedule and where you're spending your time
Yes. Yes.
is really important. Yeah.
I think that's the best way to figure out how to distribute that time. Now, I know during the time that you had your hospitalization, that was really your wake up call. Do you believe everyone needs a moment like that to kind of wake up and change? If not, then how do we learn to wake up before life actually forces us to do so?
Yeah. I don't think we need a wake up call, but most people wait for one,
Hmm.
right? Because there's no urgency otherwise. And changing is really hard, right? So I don't really know too many people that wake up and go, oh, today I want to change my entire life. I'm going to 180-degree change everything. And it's going to be super uncomfortable and difficult and challenging, but I'm just going to do it for the hell of it, right? Because there's no urgency, right? There's no an immediate need to do so. And so it gets put on the back burner because all the things that are not really such a priority fill up our day, like our inbox. And, what did my phone say the other day? I don't know, 6 hours a day on social media, or like just stuff like that. That's just complete nonsense. That's sucking our energy, like, the parasitic system that it is.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
taking away our vibration
Mhm.
essentially. But yeah, I don't think we need one, but we wait for
We
one.
wait for one, unfortunately, and that's where we need to shift things. Now, what do you believe are the most important things that women over 40 need to know about their bodies, their power, and their stage of life? Because I know you work with a lot of women during that whole menopause or perimenopause stages. I know we've touched on protein a little bit, but what other things would you say?
Definitely resistance training. And I know it sounds intimidating, but that is really the best thing you can do for yourself in terms of body composition, how you feel, your hormone regulation, being strong, right? Osteoporosis, insulin resistance, all of these things that having enough muscle tissue actually helps combat a lot of these things. And understanding nutrition, right? So one of my biggest regrets in life is that I didn't learn about nutrition earlier in my
Hmm.
life. that it took me 50 years to get here, right? Because that really, really blew my mind because everything I thought I knew about food and how to stay in shape was completely incorrect. Completely incorrect. It wasn't about restricting any particular food group or foods or eating less. It was actually quite the opposite. You know, you want to eat enough food of the right types of food that fuel you for energy and muscle development and strength and all of that rather than being hungry all the time, right? And sleep. Right. So sleep is a really underrated thing that I didn't realize because we all pat ourselves on the back for how little sleep we need. And,
Yeah, that's
you
my
know,
battle right there.
yeah, no, sleep is, I would, if I had to prioritize things, it would be learning how to self-regulate. So nervous system regulation, number one, sleep, number two, most definitely resistance training, macro-based nutrition, understanding what the content of each food is and, you know, how much buck you're going to get for
Hmm.
that calorie, right? And connection, right? So having the community, having a connection, having friends, having time for that, having a family that feels supportive to you, or friend group that feels supportive to you, I think are essential.
I love that. Everything you said, I think those are such good advice that we need to all listen and really, and the way that you listed it in priority, sleep is number two. I gotta get working on that one. That's the goal for 2026. So, but I will do it. I will do it. I'm going to achieve it. I have to just prioritize it. Well, Terry, I mean, I've loved talking to you, and your journey has revealed how essential it is to actually listen to the body, recognize the symptoms are signals, and discomfort is communication. So if you're having issues, it's your body communicating with you, and you have to listen. When emotional eating or addiction is treated only on the surface, the pattern will always return. The deeper work is understanding the root of that unmet need, the pain, the loneliness, the stress, and approaching those triggers with awareness and compassion. This kind of self advocacy allows women to wake up before a crisis rather than after. Terry is reshaping this conversation around menopause as well. Instead of accepting suffering and drastic dieting or silent struggle, she teaches women to support their bodies with nourishment and strength training, mindset work, and emotional presence. Her work has reframed menopause as a rite of passage, a powerful season of reclaiming identity, vitality, and agency. And she is continuing to help women age with confidence, clarity, and self respect, which I love. That's exactly my journey, my path. Terry, before we end the show, is there a message or a piece of advice, guidance that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
Well, one message is that it is fantastic to be fully menopausal. I've been fully menopausal for 7 years now. I finished at 42. I'm going to be 50 this year. And it's fantastic. So don't be afraid.
I love that. You're giving us all hope. Thank you.
I love it. Okay. It feels great. It feels amazing. Just, you know, with the right support for the body and the mind. And yeah, just keep doing it. You guys are doing great. We're all kind of in the same boat, and I'm glad to be here and to share the message and to learn from you. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love having you today with us. All her Terry's links will be in my show notes, so you can go check it out and get in contact with her and learn more about her. Thank you so much again, Terry, for being on Female Fluence today.
Thank you, Pearl. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for spending this time with me here on Female Fluence, where we rise, reflect, and remember who we are. If something from today's episode spoke to you, share it with another woman who's ready to rise too. And before you go, download your free empowerment coaching guide at femalefluence.com. It's your next step toward living with more clarity and confidence. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at pearlmashour_femalefluence. And if you're ready for deeper support, sign up for a free discovery call. I would love to connect with you. Remember, my friends, don't just exist. Live your life fully, bravely, and in truth. I'm Pearl Mashour, and until next time, stay true, stay powerful, and stay you.